Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we'll continue with the next part of the story of Ly Hoai Ca and Hùng. In the previous episode, after many days of treatment, Tony finally showed great improvement. His bright smile had returned. But during Tony's follow-up visit, Hoai Ca unexpectedly encountered Hùng mother, the woman who once walked away from everything, leaving behind painful memories of the past. Her cold stare, her uneasy gaze, and her cryptic warning left Hoai Ca trembling with fear. Was her appearance just a coincidence, or the beginning of something darker? And can Hoai Ca keep the secret from Hùng while her heart is filled with turmoil? Stay tuned for today's episode to see what happens next. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to follow the emotional journey of Hoai Ca, Hùng, and little Tony. That night, after returning from the hospital, Hoai Ca sat in silence, watching Tony sleep. The warm yellow light cast a soft glow over his face, rosy, peaceful, as if he had never gone through those long, sickly days. Each gentle rise and fall of his small chest brought her comfort, yet also felt like 100 tiny needles piercing her heart. She brushed a hand through Tony's soft hair, smiling faintly, but her eyes soon drifted into the distance. In her mind, the image of the woman at the hospital kept replaying the sharp, cold eyes, the trembling lips that seemed to hold back anger, and that low, bitter voice that smelled faintly of medicine. "If you tell Hùng, you'll regret it." Those words echoed again and again, a chilling warning lodged deep within her thoughts. Her hand trembled slightly. The glass of water on the table nearly tipped over. She took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, though her chest continued to rise and fall in unease. That woman, she hadn't given birth to Hùng, yet she had raised him, taught him his first lessons in life. To Hoai Ca, she was both a benefactor and a haunting shadow. She still remembered the day that woman left, without a trace of affection in her eyes, leaving behind only cruel words and wounds that would never heal. And now she had returned, appearing in the last place Hoai Ca would expect, just as Tony was beginning to recover. A coincidence? Or an omen? Hoai Ca dared not think further. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw that face again, wrinkled, gaunt, yet with eyes that could pierce through one's soul. She pulled Tony gently into her arms, clinging to the warmth of his little body as if it could anchor her to the present. But the tighter she held him, the more afraid she became. Afraid that this peace was only temporary. Afraid that the storm of the past was returning quietly, just like the way that woman had appeared in the hospital hallway, silent, yet carrying the scent of secrets long buried. The clock ticked softly in the still room. Hoai Ca's shadow wavered on the wall, thin, fragile, and lonely. Outside, the night wind rustled through the rows of erica palms, the sound like whispers from another world, reminding her that the past never truly disappears. The next morning, a thin layer of mist still blanketed the early sky. Faint sunlight filtered through the wooden blinds, scattering golden threads of light across the floor. In the kitchen, the gentle bubbling of boiling water mixed with the faint aroma of coffee, a quiet warmth that filled the small house. Hùng had woken up early. He wore a crisp white shirt, every button neatly fastened, the collar perfectly pressed. His figure moved softly in the dim light, his familiar presence breathing life into the modest home. As he tied his shoelaces, he glanced toward the bedroom, where Hoai Ca stood by the doorway, holding a steaming porcelain cup in her hands. Inside, Tony was still fast asleep. His cheeks were rosy, his hair a tousled mess, and every small sigh he made as he shifted sent ripples of tenderness through the room. The blanket had slipped to one side, revealing a tiny white arm, a sight so peaceful that Hoai Ca couldn't look away. For a fleeting moment, calmness washed over her heart, only to be replaced by a dull heaviness, as if a stone had settled in her chest. Hung approached her, his voice soft as a whisper. "I'll stop by the market later to get more milk for Tony. Let's make his favorite tonight, minced meat rice cake, remember? He kept asking for it the other day." He smiled, a simple, gentle smile, the kind that came from a man content with his quiet life. Hoai Ca smiled back faintly, though her lips trembled slightly. "All right, drive safely, okay?" She tried to sound calm, but a strange unease coiled within her chest. Every word he spoke made her guilt deepen, because she alone carried a secret he didn't know. Hung walked to the bed, leaned down, and kissed his son's forehead. The slanting morning light painted his face in a golden hue, making that moment look almost sacred, so serene it frightened her. She feared that this piece was only a fragile shell, one that something unseen could shatter at any moment. "I'm heading out now. Don't skip lunch, okay?" "I won't. Don't worry." Hung slipped on his jacket and stepped into the yard. The wooden door closed with a soft clack, followed by the hum of his motorbike blending with the chirping sparrows under the eaves. The sound faded slowly until it vanished at the end of the alley. Silence returned. Only the ticking of the wall clock, the whisper of wind through the banana leaves, and Tony's steady breathing filled the space. Hoai Ca sat on the edge of the bed, her gaze distant and unfocused. Her hand clutched the corner of the blanket, as if trying to hold on to the last trace of warmth left behind. Then, in her mind, that chilling voice returned, clear as if it had just been spoken. "If you tell Hung, you'll regret it." 6 words, sharp enough to freeze her blood. She knew that woman didn't make idle threats. Though she wasn't Hung's birth mother, she once held a quiet power over him, the kind of power born from shared pasts and hidden wounds Hoai Ca could never fully touch. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling her heartbeat race. So many times, she had almost told him, even last night when he'd asked, "What's wrong?" Still feeling tired. The words "I met your mother at the hospital" had reached the edge of her tongue, but she swallowed them down, terrified that once spoken, nothing could ever return to the way it was. She feared the look in his eyes would change. Feared he would fall silent again, the kind of silence that once tore them apart. Love does not fear hatred, it fears silence. And no one knew that better than her. Hoai Ca sat motionless. Outside, the last drop of dew slid off a banana leaf and landed with a soft plop, startling her. She turned, as if sensing someone behind her, but there was no one. Only her shadow stretched long across the floor, trembling slightly in the breeze slipping through the window. A creeping unease filled the room. It was as if, somewhere in the still air, that woman's eyes were still watching, cold, deep, calculating. Hoai Ca shivered, drew Tony into her arms, and pressed her cheek to his forehead, clinging to the warmth of the present moment. His breathing was steady, the faint scent of milk in his hair grounding her back to reality. Yet her heart still churned. She knew some returns were not meant for reconciliation, but to awaken a new storm. And deep within her chest, she felt it clearly, something was about to happen. Meanwhile, in a run-down lodging house on the outskirts of town, Hung's mother sat alone in a damp, dimly lit room. Faint light seeped through a torn curtain, casting uneven shadows across the stained cement floor. The air was heavy, a mixture of mildew, stale cigarette smoke, and the greasy scent of someone cooking in the next room, thick enough to make anyone breathe quietly. Scattered across the floor were unpaid bills, loan papers, and overdue notices, crumpled, water-stained, many already spotted with mold. She hunched over on a chipped wooden chair, a half-burned cigarette trembling between her fingers, her clouded eyes fixed on nothing. Her graying hair hung limp, strands sticking to her sweat-dampened forehead. Those hands, once used to holding knives, to carrying baskets to the market, once strong and firm, the same hands that taught Hung how to write and how to live, now shook with exhaustion. They were dry, rough, covered in calluses, like her life itself, worn out, stripped bare, and with nothing left to lose. On the small table lay a faded photograph, its corners curled and torn, a photo of 3 people, Ly Hoai Ca and little Tony. The image had been creased right where Hoai Ca's face was, the fold so deep it had torn the paper. The woman stared at it for a long while, her eyes stinging, her lips curling into a half-smile, part bitterness, part self-mockery. "He's happy now, and me, all that's left is this shell." Her voice was hoarse, rasping between heavy breaths. A gust of wind slipped through the crack in the door, flipping a debt notice onto the floor. She bent down, picked it up, and glared at the red stamp reading "overdue" before crushing the paper in her fist, her eyes flashing with anger and despair. She had sold the house. The ancestral home where Hung once played as a boy was now nothing but an empty patch of cracked tiles. The money she once borrowed, believing it would change her life, had long vanished, wasted on poor choices and false friends. Relatives had turned their backs, neighbors avoided her. Now she lived hidden away in this crumbling room, clinging to what little dignity remained, fragile and useless, like the old scraps of paper peeling off the walls. She knew that after what she had done to Hoai Ca, there was no way back. The memory still haunted her, that stormy night years ago. Hoai Ca collapsed on the ground, blood mixing with rainwater, while Hung screamed her name into the darkness. That image came back every night, a nightmare that never let her rest. She pressed her hands to her head, nails digging into her scalp, but the sting of flesh was nothing compared to the ache inside her heart. "She'll never forgive me." Her trembling voice broke the silence, half confession, half curse upon herself. Her weary eyes drifted toward the narrow window. Outside, the sun was rising, yet the room remained cold and damp. On the table sat a yellowed envelope, quiet and unassuming. Inside was a small note, scrawled hastily with an address, Tiu San, food stall at the West Market, evening shift. She turned the paper over and over in her shaking hand. A faint glimmer of hope flickered in her eyes, the final spark of a woman pushed to the edge. If no one else in this world would take her in, there was still Tiu San, the girl she had raised, the only one who still called her mother. She stared at the envelope, her heart heavy. "San, you're all I have left." Her hoarse voice dissolved into the stillness. And in those tired eyes, the familiar glint returned, the look of someone once cold and calculating, slowly, quietly rekindling, like a small flame fighting to rise again from the ashes. Late in the afternoon, when the sunlight had turned the color of honey, Tiu San was tidying up the small yard in front of her rented house. The wilted bougainvillea pots were aligned neatly against the wall, and the sound of her broom brushing across the dry cement echoed softly. The air was still, save for a few dry leaves spinning lazily in the wind. From outside the gate, a quiet figure stepped in. Tiu San turned, and her heart stopped for a brief moment. The woman standing there, frail, sun-darkened skin, weary eyes, limping steps, looked as if a single gust of wind might knock her down. "San, I have nowhere else to go." Her voice was hoarse, broken, carrying the scent of cigarettes and old cooking smoke. "Let me stay here for a while, my daughter." She took another step forward, clutching the edge of her shirt, her gaze wavering between pitiful and unsettling. Tiu San froze. Memories flashed through her mind, the woman who had raised her, the meager meals they'd shared, the scoldings mixed with affection, and the nights she came home reeking of alcohol, eyes clouded with bitterness. "Mother, why are you here?" I thought you were still back home. Home? The woman gave a dry, hollow laugh. There's no such thing as home anymore, San. Her words fell slowly, dripping with the bitterness of someone who had lost everything. She lifted her hand, pointing at the worn-out bag slung over her shoulder. This is all I have left. I've been sleeping outside the market porch for days. I'm hungry, San. Please, just let me stay for a few nights. Her voice broke, but her eyes remained sharp, studying every flicker of emotion on Tiu San's face. That wasn't the look of a mother begging, it was the look of someone measuring, calculating, waiting. Tiu San lowered her head uneasy. She had never seen the woman so frail, yet an invisible fear still lingered deep inside her. Let me think about it, Mother. I'm living with David now. I don't think he'd be happy about it. The moment the name David left her lips, the air grew tense. The woman's head lifted slightly. In her murky eyes, a flash of light, quick but unmistakable. Her lips trembled, but she forced herself to bow her head again, voice cracking as if from real pain. Oh, so you're living with someone now. I see. That's good. I don't want to trouble you. Her tone softened into pitiful resignation. I just need a little money. Just a little. I'll leave right away. I promise. I won't come back again, my daughter. Her words dropped slowly, each one heavy as it hit the ground. For a long time, Tiu San said nothing. She looked at the woman before her, the one who had once cradled her, sheltered her through hunger and hardship, now reduced to a fragile shadow trembling under the sunset. The golden light revealed every wrinkle, every scar of a worn-out life. Something inside Tiu San softened. She sighed, turned back into the house, and took a small bundle of cash from her purse. Here, take this, Mother. It's not much. Let me know if you find something more stable. The woman's thin hands shook as she accepted it, gripping the bills tightly as though afraid they'd be snatched away. Thank you, San. I owe you so much. Her voice quivered, tears streaking down her rough cheeks, but behind those tears, a different light flickered in her eyes, sharp and deliberate. I'll go now, she murmured softly. Turning away, she shuffled down the path, her frail figure fading beyond the fence. The sun dipped low, painting the dirt road in a fiery red glow, stretching her shadow long and distorted behind her. And as she reached the end of the alley, the woman's eyes glinted once more, cold, sharp, and full of calculation. That night, Tiu San couldn't sleep. Outside, a light drizzle tapped against the tin roof, casting rippling reflections on the walls. She lay awake, eyes wide open in the dark, her mind replaying the image of the frail woman from earlier, the hollow face, the trembling hands, and those eyes that were both pitiful and frightening. She knew her mother had suffered. But that look, it wasn't the look of someone broken by despair. It was the look of someone hiding something. Tiu San sat up and quietly opened the window. The night wind slipped in, carrying the scent of wet earth and the cool dampness after rain. Far away, the streetlights shimmered faintly on the slick pavement, trembling through the shadows of the trees. She sighed, picked up her phone, and hesitated for a few seconds before pressing a number. The line rang for a while before a familiar voice answered, deep, husky, tinged with surprise. San? Why are you calling so late? She bit her lip, her voice low and trembling. Brother. I saw Mom today. She's in bad shape. She said she's sorry, that she wants to change, but I don't know, she feels different. Strange. Silence. On the other end, Hung didn't speak, only a heavy sigh came through the static. She knew he was remembering everything that had happened years ago. The house in flames that night, the screams, the tears, and the kind of pain that never truly fades. Finally, Hung's voice came, low and weary. Stay calm. I'll come see you tomorrow. The next morning, Hung took a half-day off work. He drove toward the town. The distance wasn't far, yet every kilometer felt like a burden. The scenery rolled past in muted sunlight: rice fields, small houses, a quiet river drifting alongside the road. In the rearview mirror, his face was drawn and pale, eyes rimmed red from a sleepless night. When he arrived, Tiu San was already waiting outside. She wore a worn sweater, her hair loosely tied back, her expression tight with worry. Hung said nothing, just gave a small nod and stepped inside. They sat together on an old wooden bench in the dim little room. The weak yellow bulb flickered above them, revealing cracks in the walls, and in their eyes, the weight of too many unspoken years. For a long time, neither spoke. The ticking of a clock filled the silence, along with a dog barking in the distance and the soft whisper of wind through the gaps in the door. Hung sat with his head lowered, fingers intertwined, while Tiu San watched him, her gaze full of love and unease. At last, Hung exhaled, his voice deep and heavy. "I knew it was only a matter of time before she tried to come back. But if she's truly remorseful, I won't hold it against her. I just want one thing, that she doesn't hurt anyone again. Especially Hoai Ca." His eyes darkened as he spoke. He remembered the fear in his wife's eyes the night before, the faint, forced smile he couldn't understand. Now he knew why. She had been hiding something. And it had everything to do with his mother. Tiu San nodded, her fingers twisting together. "I hope so too, but brother, I don't think she's let go yet." Her voice fell to a whisper. "When I mentioned you last night," her eyes lit up. Not like a mother missing her son, but like she was thinking of something else. "I'm afraid she still resents Hoai Ca, or maybe she's planning to get close to you somehow." Hung lifted his head, his gaze meeting hers. In his eyes was a storm, torn between the compassion of a son and the caution of a man who had already lost too much. "If she interferes in my family's life again." He paused, his voice rough and low. "Then I won't hold back, even if she's my mother." Tiu San's lips tightened, her eyes glistening. "I understand, brother. But you know her. She's not someone who gives up easily." That afternoon, the sunlight had turned golden, shimmering across the dirt path that led to the front gate. Hoai Ca walked slowly, carrying a basket after a long day at the market. Inside were some vegetables, a few fish, and a small carton of milk for Tony. As she walked, her mind wandered to dinner: fish porridge for her son, amaranth soup for Hung. It seemed like just another quiet evening in their peaceful life. But as she reached the entrance to the alley, she froze. In front of the gate, beneath the shade of a betel nut tree, someone was sitting hunched, motionless. A frayed jacket, tangled hair, and hands gripping an old cloth bag with worn edges. The person slowly lifted her head, and in that instant, Hoai Ca's heart clenched. It was her, Hung's mother. The air around her thickened. The cicada's summer cries suddenly sounded sharp and unbearable. Sweat gathered on her forehead, trickling down in rhythm with her quickening heartbeat. The woman stood, her movements heavy, eyes clouded yet still flickering with that cold, familiar sharpness. Her voice came out raspy, carrying the stale scent of cigarettes and years gone by. "I only came to talk." "What? Are you so afraid of me that you can't even look me in the eye?" Her tone was calm, cruelly calm. Hoai Ca stiffened, her fingers tightening around the handle of her basket until her knuckles turned white. A breeze from the field swept past, rustling her dress, yet her feet felt nailed to the ground. She forced herself to speak, her throat dry. "Why are you here?" "I thought there was nothing left for us to say." The woman's lips curled into a faint, bitter smile, part pity, part contempt. "How times have changed. You used to bow your head at my doorstep, and now you speak to me like that." Hoai Ca said nothing. The wind passed between them, carrying the faint sound of evening birds and the distant smell of burning straw. The silence grew so thick it pressed against her chest. The woman took another step closer, her voice softer, but sharp as a blade. "Don't think I came here to cause trouble. I only wanted to see my son, and the boy. I heard he's getting better." "Good for you." Hoai Ca trembled. Every word the woman spoke carried two meanings, one calm, one quietly threatening. Her eyes were just as cold as before, though now veiled behind weariness and the pretense of weakness. ChatGPT to NOI. After all these years, the shadows of the past have found their way back once more. That woman, Hung's mother, what is she hiding behind her tears and words of regret? Could it all be nothing more than a mask, concealing a new plan slowly taking shape? Will Hung realize the truth in time and protect Hoai Ca from the storm silently closing in, before everything is once again pulled into the whirlpool of the past? And behind her mysterious return, is there a secret that has never been revealed? Stay tuned for the next episode to find out what happens when trust, love, and the past collide in a single moment.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến với mọi người tập tiếp theo của câu chuyện về lytutien và CEO dắt. Thì hiện tại là mình vừa mới edit xong và mình đang quay. Thế nên là 1 phút nối đuôi để nối vào. Thì mình hy vọng rằng mọi người sẽ ủng hộ cho kênh mình nhiều hơn để kênh mình có thể ngày càng phát triển và phát triển hơn và có nhiều lượt xem hơn. Thì do mấy hôm nay mình đang bị ốm nên là cái giọng nói của mình nó không có được to. Cảm ơn mọi người rất nhiều vì đã xem video và nếu như mọi người xem đến 1 phút cuối cùng như thế này thì mình cũng cảm thấy rất biết ơn vì mọi người đã dành thời gian để không những xem video mà xem những đoạn chia sẻ ở cuối video của mình, và hy vọng rằng sẽ có thể gặp lại mọi người trong những video tiếp theo. Mong rằng có thể tiếp tục gặp lại mọi người. Cảm ơn mọi người rất là nhiều. Chào tạm biệt và hẹn gặp lại. Bye bye mọi người.